Many said the Asics Nimbus 25s were one of the best cushioned shoes for 2023, but what if you ask someone who ran exclusively in them for 6 months with barely any long distance running experience? Hey, I'm Jack, an everyday runner hoping to help others learn a little bit more about running. In today's video, I'm going to be reviewing the Asics Nimbus 25s after using them for over 800 kilometers to train for the New York City Marathon last year. I'll split the video up into the following sections on the screen if you want to jump around a little. Let's get into it. Just a little disclosure, you mob, I received both pairs of the Asics Nimbus 25s as part of the Indigenous Marathon project, which was sponsored by Asics, so I didn't have to pay for these 2 pairs of shoes. However, neither the Marathon project or Asics are paying me to make this video today. First up was how exactly I used the Asics Nimbus 25s, and to be honest, as my first marathon, this was an anything and everything kind of shoe. Right from my short, easy recovery runs through to my speed sessions and all the way to my long runs on the Sundays. Pretty much whatever was on my training schedule, I threw the Asics into that every time. And as training continued, I obviously received my second pair in the white version, and my black pair actually just became my everyday work shoe as well. I kind of had the idea that I wanted to be in runners pretty much 24/7 to give myself the best ability to have my feet recover and be as supported as possible too. Knowing that now, I think I was going a bit too overboard and just use everyday work shoes in my life now and have much more of a rotation system with my running shoes, which both of my Asics Nimbus still feature in them. So let's go into a bit more detail as to what sessions I put my Asics Nimbus 25s through for the 800 kilometers last year. My long runs all the way up to 30 kilometers, 10 kilometer surge work, so often doing 2 kilometers of surges with about half a K or so with a recovery float. My slow recovery runs, which range from about 5Ks through to 10Ks during the week. My moderate 14K runs, where I really started to pick up the pace towards the final 4 kilometers. And also my speed workouts, which usually included 800 meter intervals, 2K surges, as I mentioned just before, and even some hill work. Keeping in mind that this was my first marathon, the only other pair of runners that I trained in were my Asics Noosa Tri-14s. Only really using these if I just needed to change up out of my Nimbus, which usually were my speed workouts or even my 5K short runs if I just felt like something lighter. When I first started using the Nimbus, I felt like I was wearing a pair of boats, which is a good segue into the next part of the video, being my personal thoughts on the Asics Nimbus 25s. As a complete newbie to long distance running, I had no idea about the different types of shoes you could use for different types of training. But overall, felt like the Asics Nimbus was a one-size-fits-all approach to my marathon training, and successfully did so with them. The biggest perk to the Asics Nimbus 25 I found was the cushioning, and I only really started appreciating this in the final parts of my marathon training. The FF Blast Eco Foam really started to grow on me in the final parts of my marathon training, and even still having both sets of my Nimbuses in my training rotation, really do appreciate how comfy of a ride they can provide. It really felt like I was running on clouds in these, and only really noticed that difference in the cloud-like feeling when buying 2 new sets of shoes to add into my current rotation. For me, the Nimbus 25 really started to shine during my long runs where I was out for multiple hours and benefited so much from having that comfy foam. This ensured it would be a smooth ride for pretty much all of my long run and allowed me to keep a very comfortable pace. As a fella with a wide-ish foot, I did feel like the Asics Nimbus did fit true to size, being a 10.5 runner, and had plenty of room in the toe box of the shoe. However, with the roomier toe box, did find myself fall susceptible to having blisters on the front of my toes, but didn't get to a point where I really had to start taping them and having them be aggravated for every run too. So that was the only real little downfall that I had in terms of the sizing of the shoe. The cushioning around the ankle and the heel was really well received, and overall felt my foot was never slipping or sliding out of place. Another big bonus in receiving these shoes was knowing that my custom orthotics would fit. And as I now go into my own kind of running journey and starting to buy and experiment with new shoes, have found that this was a really big learning experience for me to know that I could fit in the Asics Nimbus if I do choose to purchase them again too. Just something to factor in if you are a runner who does have custom orthotics. Some downsides that I had to the shoe was, as I mentioned before, it kind of felt like I was wearing boats for my runs too, and at times would clip my toes when running. Though my form obviously improved over time, was the only real thing that I noticed during them where I had to almost reevaluate my running technique. And while I know the main purpose of the Nimbus 25s is cushioning, I did struggle to pick up the pace in my speed workouts or when I added some speed into my long runs as well in the Nimbus 25s. And if you were to ask me if I'd buy the Asics Nimbus 25s again, I'd probably say no, and the only reason for this is I feel like I've got a lot more experimenting as a fairly new runner into the world of shoes and different types of trainers out there too. So I'm not quite ready to pick up another pair just yet as I start to experiment with some other max cushion shoes out there. Leave a comment down below if you're enjoying this review so far on the shoes, and I'll be sure to do some more in the future. So now, who I'd recommend the Asics Nimbus 25 shoes to. I'd recommend the Nimbus 25s to a runner looking for a cushioned, supportive, and very casual running shoe that allows them to get that kilometers in. Not obviously picking up the paces towards Boston Marathon qualifying times, but just something to get you through and to get it done. Even more so for those runners that are looking for the cushion support. These can even double as great walking shoes, as my black Nimbus 25s became my work shoes for a good part of all of last year. And they even made a good walking shoe when I was in New York too, so I would highly recommend them. So there we have it. My thoughts on using the Asics Nimbus 25s and running over 800 kilometers in them last year to help me get to the starting line of the New York City Marathon. Let me know if you found this video useful in the comments below and if you'd like to see more like this in the future. I'm Jack, and I'll see you next time. Catch ya.